Now we're going to move on to our magical lens card. I think this is probably one of the more kind of complicated ones. It's not overly complicated, but you do need to take your time with it. And if you've never kind of looked into the lens of a camera or figured out how it works, I think that's where the complication lies. But once you've made it, it is quite it's quite incredible actually that you can make it from card. So what we have is we have the decorated card here and we have the aperture in the middle. Now when you take the, I'm not left-handed so I might struggle with this, but when you actually slide this up you can see how the lens opens and you close it back down again, it closes up. So you can put some really, really nice backgrounds here, whether it be an image of a princess we've got here. We've coloured her in with the ink lily pens just so that she actually matches all the colours that we've used on the card. She does have, she is a full-size princess, but what I've done is cut her down just to fit behind the aperture. But imagine doing this with maybe a photograph behind of a loved one or a new baby or something like that. You could really go to town on this one. So we're going to show you how to make the mechanism and we're going to do it in black and white so it just kind of makes a little bit more sense to you when you're putting it together. So we'll pop the card to one side and we will first show you how to do the actual card base. So the card base comes in two sections. So we have the front section and then we have the back section. And as usual, we've got that perforated tab here where we just need to fold that and then we attach that to the card like this. So we've got a front and a back of a card. So let's do that. That'll be drying and we can then crack on with that mechanism and hopefully get it opening and closing nicely. And then you can make it, maybe you've got a special occasion coming up where you want to make something a bit special. Maybe you've never made a kinetic or moving card before, so this USB is a really good way of finding out how to do it, and then you can do them 100 times, a million times, however many times you want. So we've got our card blank now, like that. We've got the front and the back, so we just pop that to one side, and we'll pop some mats onto there later. So what we have the shutter arms here. So we have 5 of these, so we've cut 5 of these out. I've cut these in white, and the section that they slot into I've done in black, so we get to see how it works. Now each of the shutter arms have this little kind of section on the end here, like a bit like a T shape, and then at this end we have these little tabs which are perforated. So what we need to do is we need to pop those little tabs up on each of the shutter arms. So we'll just pop those up like that, and you do that on each of them so that they stand up. And make sure your shutter arms are all going the same way, like that. And that one, and then the 5th one as well. Okay, so what we do now, we take the section here which has these little kind of gaps, these slotted areas, and we tuck these inside like that. Okay, now you're probably thinking, where does this go? Where does this go? Well, eventually when they're all tucked in, you will see how they all slot in. For the moment, they're probably going to just move around a little bit like that. So I'm going to let that happen because then when you come to put it together, it actually makes a bit more sense, in my brain anyway. So you can see we've got this one in here. Now, the idea is that when they're all in, they sit on top of each other like this. You can see that they're actually curved and they're the same shape as the circle. So what we're going to do is pop that one in, and you can do this as you go if you like, by sitting them and aligning them on top of each other like this. So that's our 4th one, and then the 5th one has to slip into that gap under there. So let's just do that, and then when you pop them all on top of each other, you can see how they all align with that circle. Now what we need to do, we need to put another piece on top of that so that we can get that whole mechanism working. So what I've done, I've cut it in black and I've cut it in white, so it's I wanted to show you it in contrasting colours so you can kind of figure out how it works. So the idea now is that we pop these tabs through each of the holes. Okay, so this is a little bit fiddly, but again, once you've got them in there, it's kind of self-explanatory really. So we'll pop those in, and then these little tabs will fold down, but we're not going to do that just yet because we need to make sure they're all lined up on top of each other. So let's do that one on there, and then this one will go in here. Again, remember the shutter arms are not fixed in place, so if you need to move them to get them into the holes, that's absolutely fine. You can do that. You might need to move them to the left, to the right, or back and forth. So you can see now we've got our little arms poking through here. So the tabs now can be just opened out like that. Okay, and now you can see how that is sitting nicely. Now if we hold this carefully, we can actually move it. We can, if we hold the bottom, we can actually move it round so that it closes, but it's difficult because you don't want to move those arms out of the way, but this is a good way of testing it. So just be very careful with it, because remember, it's not all connected together properly yet. But there you can see now you've got that shutter arm. So basically I'm just cupping the bottom circle, and then I'm going to slide it back round like that so it's open and then shut. So that's a good indication, and it's a good test for you to say, I've got it right now, I've got it together. Okay, so now we've got some extra circles. So we've got the black and white here, and remember I'm doing it in opposite pieces, so I don't want you to think you have to cut everything out here. You're just going to need one of each. So we've got a base circle, and then we've got a top ring, and then we've also got the rings with the perforated sections. So you've got 4 tabs sticking out. Now obviously when you're making something like this, you think, well, why have we only got 4 here when we've had 5 everything else? That's because we need to allow a gap here for that shutter arm to go up and down. If we had another prong here, it wouldn't be able to open the full way like a camera lens would. So what we've done here, we've put 2 sets of perforations in. So one here that lines up with the circle, which you need to fold down like that. And then if you tilt it up, you'll see you've got another row of perforations. So we need to bend those down like that, because this is what's going to hold the mechanism together so all the bits don't drop out. Okay, so we have this section, and we tried different ways of doing this, and we found that this was probably the best way. Originally we glued it flat, but then that stopped the lens from opening. So we've added this little section of depth here, which then allows all this to tuck inside like that. Okay, so if I just show you this first of all. Now what you need to make sure is that sits like that, okay, but where there is a gap, you need to make sure that your mechanism arm will sit between these 2 here, so in that bigger gap. Right, so we're going to just take that out. Now then, we originally glued these in place, but when you glue it, you have to wait some considerable time before you can actually test that it all works. So what I've done is I've got some red liner tape here, and I'm going to use red liner tape for this. So I'm going to put 2, I'm using my thin red liner tape, so I'm going to put 2 little pieces on each of the tabs here. I didn't want to put this on before I'd actually folded in the tabs, because I wanted to make sure it all made sense before we started to use any adhesive. So if we just put this along the kind of top end of the tab, so the bit that's away from the circle. Remember, we don't want to put it on this bit here, because this needs to remain free for our mechanism to turn, if that kind of makes sense. So let's just do a little bit on here, and then a little bit on here. Oh, let me just redo that. Oh no, that's stuck, that's fine. Just trim that. So we do another little piece on top there, so we've got a good sticky section. And if you've got a wider tape, then you can use a wider tape. I've just grabbed my little tape here, so it still works. But it's probably the best one to use because it's nice and strong, and will hold everything in place. Okay, so now let's just, I'll get my little poker tool and take the backings off there. And then we can expose that sticky tape there that's going to go underneath. Now this is probably the, for want of a better word, the faffiest bit of the mechanism of it going together. But it's worth it once it actually works. To see that lens section open is kind of quite magical, because I don't think I've ever made one of these before in my life, and I've been crafting since I was very young, and you know, working as a demonstrator for a long time, and I don't think I've ever actually made one of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this on top. So if we bring in the original, so we can see where that arm is sitting. So if I don't know if we can get just to look in that gap there, but the tabs here are the top section. So that is the top. The base has the shutter arm sections poking through there. So I wanted to just show you that little kind of gap there so that you can see which is the top and which is the bottom. So remember, we need to make sure that there's nothing stopping this arm from moving. So if we just do a little test again to see which way it opens like that, we can then pop this onto here. Now, the other thing we want to make sure of is that this doesn't catch on any of the shutter arms underneath. So let's turn this over and position it so that it doesn't catch on any of these sections here. Okay, so a good idea is to just pop it on gently without putting too much pressure. So as you know, with red liner tape, it's very sticky, but we also have got a little bit of time. I think if we don't put too much pressure on, we can just check that that will work before we actually press it securely. So once you've done that, turn it over and test that that still works. Yes, it does. It still works, and we've got enough room, and it's not catching on any of the mechanism, which is perfect. That's what we want to do. So I'm going to pop my poker tool just in there now and put a little bit of pressure on that section so that that tape gives us a really nice bond, because that's the important panel that holds that whole lens together. Okay, so let's just pop that one down there as well. I'll just move that up a little bit. Okay, like that. So we've kind of made, even though it's a circle, we've kind of made like a little casing for it to hold, right? And then if we look at that, that's moving great. That's closing and opening as well. So that's perfect. That's what you want. Okay, so now what we need to do, because we're going to put this onto a card, we want to make sure that we have got something underneath. We don't want to open it up and it be empty. You know, we don't want to be showing something under there or a gap like that. So what I'm going to do is put the base panel into here like this. And I'm doing it black and white, obviously, so that you get the idea and you can see how it works. Now, again, another little important thing here. We don't want to attach this. We don't want to put it on any of these moving parts. So a good idea is to just pop a tiny bit of glue or tape. It's entirely up to you. So that's how our glue comes out, of course. It's been very temperamental today, but we will just take that little bit of, there we go, we got it. It's that like a tiny little bit of skin that goes over the top, just to stop it from getting any air in. So again, as long as you are not in the way of any parts of the mechanism, you can then put your circle on top, like that, and then turn it over. Give that a few minutes to dry. Again, another little tip, if you want to, pop your poker tool in, because we've only put a tiny bit of glue on there. So you pop your poker tool in just to give a little bit of pressure, and then obviously don't mess with your mechanism for a few minutes while that dries. Now then, the next thing to do is you can decorate it. So we've got lots of different options of how you decorate it on the USB. I have chosen the lovely scalloped circle. Now this will go on top. If I show you in the black one as well, the black one can go on there too, if you like. Entirely up to you. Should we do the black or should we do the white? What do you think? Should we do the black? I like the black. So let's stick the black on there. Again, a bit of glue on top of your main mechanism. And then this one will sit on top there, like that. You're just going to line up the inside of the aperture there. And then we've got this beautiful happy birthday ring that can go on there as well. Now with this one, you've got little, it doesn't actually cut all the letters out, you've got like little blocky letters, so you can see there when it stands out how good it is. The only bits that will come out are the insides of the letter D's, everything else stays in there, but you've got some really nice cut lines, so it just separates those letters, then you can see what it reads. So that can go on top of there. So let's just pop that on there. And the good thing is about this mechanism, I think, you could put this on top of anything, you know, so you might want to put this on a card. You might want to just put it on the top of a box or inside a box. You might want to make a child's game with it so they've all got a little mechanism each or something like that. And this is the good thing about this mechanism, is that it's separate. So that is your mechanism made now. You can close it, you can open it. Okay, one last little thing before you put it on the card. Again, another good thing as well about this, you can put it on a really big card, you can put it on a small card. Lots of ideas with this one. So we've got some lovely mats that are on the USB as well. And I'm not going to stick them down, I'm just going to give you some options. So you can, in fact, use the lovely kind of scalloped frame like that. You can use just those and then put your mechanism on top. So you can see how I love it in black and white. I think it's really good in black and white. If you want to, we've also got some beautiful frames that match. So you can put an inner frame on and then pop your mechanism in the middle there. That looks great too. Then we also have a big frame. So if you want to, you can actually layer up the frame on pads. So you've got something that stands up a little higher. If I bring in the original card, you'll see I've just layered up one of the frames on top of two of those scallop mats, and then I've done exactly the same with the mechanism and just decorated it with some pearls. And again, you've got that lovely flowing action in there. It's really clever. I was really pleased when it worked because, as I said, like you, I've never made one before. But there's your original one, and there is the one we've just made. And again, once that's glued down, you won't have to hold the outer ring. You'll just be able to close it and shut it like that. Have a go and enjoy it.